Hello everybody and welcome to a CPDSO members only session. This is a CPDSO members only session, so please do I encourage you to turn on your cameras. We do want to see you. It's like a family session, so please do just turn on those cameras. It's all going to be about building trust in yourself, number one, in your training and in your prospects. So today I've got three guest speakers with us today. Barnaby Winter, Chris Dawes, and Gina Gardiner, who's going to be sharing their expertise on the different dimensions of trust and how it affects your business. So let's move forward. Again, like I said, a warm welcome. Please do, this is not an open session where we've got everyone on the session. This is a closed session only for members. So we would like you to have your cameras on, be ready to engage, and obviously take notes. So please do have those cameras on. Hello, Claire, Fiona, I can see you guys there. Welcome to you both. Easter, Ian, hello everyone, that's it. Let's get those cameras on if we can. And chat rules. So today, like I said, it's going to be an open session. I really do want you guys to engage. Any complaints, if there's any complaints, please do just send them directly to me in the chat. I've actually opened up the chat for this webinar. So the chat is going to be open. So everyone's going to be able to see your comments unless you send them directly to me. So if there is any complaints, please do send it directly to myself and just put a C in front of that. Like it says there, just put a C in front of that so I know that it's a complaint and direct it at myself. So this session is going to be open mic. When you do ask for access to the mic, it is about sharing and not selling. If you do want to talk on the mic, just put mic, direct it to myself again, put mic at the beginning, and then I will let you, I'll open up the mic to yourself. And you can do that at any point during this session. So if anything's pressing on you and you want to ask a question or make a point, you feel you've got some value to add, please do let us know because it is an open session. Lastly, support and ask questions. So if you're not comfortable with going on the mic, still just use the chat box. Again, if you have questions, send it to myself, put a Q, and then it will come directly to me as well. And then I'll be able to pose the question. And if it's to one of our panelists, just put the panelist name in there as well, but send it to myself. Okay, so to get us started, I just wanted to do two quick polls with you guys because I want to get an understanding of which areas of trust you feel you need to grow in. So have a look at that. I don't know if you guys look at trust in terms of different areas and how it affects your business, but let's have a read through this poll. So it's on your screen now. And you can select multiple answers for this one as well. So trusting yourself and seeing yourself as an expert in field, trusting the quality of your content and your ability to deliver, building a trustworthy brand, building trust in buyers. So which one do you think you need to grow in? So the results are coming back. It's looking really interesting. If I can get your participation in this, it will really help facilitate the conversation moving forward. Thank you, guys. Just waiting for two more people. And we're gonna end that poll there. So I'm just gonna share the results with you as well. So it'll be interesting for you guys to see where other people are at as well at this time. So you can see trusting the quality of your content and your ability to deliver is actually the one that most people want to build on. So that's really interesting. Actually, I wasn't sure if that was going to be the one. So that's really interesting. And our expert on that one actually today is Chris Dawes, our presentation expert. He did a presentation with us a while back, one of our most popular on YouTube actually. So I'll be sharing the link to that afterwards as well, but it's all about being an amazing online facilitator. So I'll be sharing that with you guys as well. So we'll be talking about all of these moving forward. And just one more poll quickly. because I really want to know about how much you guys are looking to engage in this one. So I just want to see how you guys are going to engage and the method of engagement that you guys are most comfortable with. So how will you engage during this session? So yes, I have value to add. I will request my access. I have questions to ask. I will request my access. And yes, most likely have questions, but will prefer the chat. Okay, so I'll just wait for another couple seconds. 3, 2, and 1. Thank you, guys. Thank you for that. Okay, so we've got a lot of people that are in the 21st century and like to use chat boxes. If you do feel inspired to get on the mic and ask a question, we would love to hear your voice. Please do just request that mic access, and I'll be more than happy to open that up for you. Okay. All right, so the session is going to be broken down like this. We've got 4 segments. So when looking at trust, I look at it like this. There's 2 overarching segments, internal and external. And then within that, there's 2 sections within each. So within internal trust, it's just like the ones I asked you in that question. So trusting yourself and seeing yourself as an expert in field, trusting the quality of your content and your ability to deliver it. So those are internal aspects of trust, which we're going to be looking at building on and explaining away, problems away with Chris Dawes and Gina Gardner, touching on those 2 aspects. And then we've got external trust, which is all about building a trustworthy brand and building trust in buyers, which we're going to be looking at with Barnaby Winter towards the back end of the session. So in this session, the recording and the slides will be available afterwards, those that signed up for it, no one else. So it's only going to be available to you guys and those that signed up for the session. So moving forward, we have Gina Gardner. She did one of our first sessions. I think she did our first session where we had a guest CPDSO speaker, and it went down a treat. We all looked at resilience for trainers and coaches on how to cope with psychological pressures during COVID. It went swimmingly. It's on YouTube as well, like all the rest of them. Her company is called Generally You, and she's going to be tackling that internal aspect of trust. Then we've got Chris Dawes. Again, like I said, Chris Dawes did an amazing session with us on being an amazing facilitator and advice on digital virtual learning sessions. And that again is also online as well on our YouTube. And his company is called Open Doors. And then we have Barnaby Winter, who's going to be taking the last stretch. And he is a brand expert. He did a webinar with us called the 7 Key Foundation Stones to make your business the go-to brand in the digital economy. And his company is called The Brand Bucket. So we're going to have these 4 segments now. We're going to start off with the internal trust. So we're going to be looking at the internal trust. And just before we do that, I do have a message. I believe, Amanda, are you with us?
Hi, good afternoon. Yes, I am with you. Sorry, I had a few problems dialing in this afternoon. Just a very quick hello to me, to warmly welcome all of our panellists today, and also to welcome all of you, our membership community. It's always a great privilege and wonderful to spend time with you on Thursday afternoons. As you know, we have been carrying you through coming out of lockdown and providing as much advice and guidance as we can. For those of you that haven't seen it, we have launched guidelines under our Get Face to Face Ready initiative. We're very much working with national government, regional employers, and all of you that are fantastic coaching, training and excuse me, education organisations to return back to face-to-face training in this kind of new world that we face. So the guidelines will be issued again next week with a September update. They're really detailed. It takes you through a step-by-step process of how to deliver face-to-face training in line with the current government rules. So making sure that you're 100% safe, you're offering a secure environment to your delegates and one that's socially distanced. And we've also had this morning, for those of you that also joined us, a member webinar whereby we were talking with Barry Shearman MP about how we really do kickstart the economy and the role that accredited CPDSO providers will play in that. So that recording will be with you shortly. But I'm delighted that we're having this session today because since lockdown began, as we all know, there's been a boom in online training, and we called it lockdown learning. It was mainly due to most face-to-face providers pivoting to online, but unfortunately, of unscrupulous organisations and individuals who have taken advantage of this new market. There's always a black market where there's a market. And we're seeing lots of what we call trickster trainers and cowboy coaches. So in order for us to kind of resume our place as trusted trainers and advisors, we need to make sure that we have got our brand, you have got your messaging, and you have got your accreditation properly positioned, and you're communicating trusted educational coaching to your delegates in order for you to stand head and shoulders above the rest. And in the background, we're doing lots and lots of work to try and get some of these rogue providers back out of the market. So, as I said, delighted that you're joining with us this afternoon. Back over to Daniel, to Gina, Chris and Barnaby for what I'm sure is going to be a very interesting session.
Yeah, thank you so much, Amanda. As I was saying, trust is perhaps the most important part of a business. If your delegates don't trust your service or you, the ship won't sail. And if you don't trust yourself and your business or your training quality, there is no ship. So we're going to be looking at the ship first of all, and that's going to be the internal trust. So we're looking at yourself. How do you build trust in yourself and the quality that you're putting out there, and the materials you present? So the first segment is we're going to be looking at these two questions for the first 20 minutes with Gina Gardiner, trust in your expertise. So the first question is, what practical steps can someone take to gauge and establish their credibility? So I'm going to pass it over to Gina first of all, and then we're going to run through the rest of the panel to get some of their input, and then it's open to the floor as well. So if you want to start mulling things over in your mind, or if you have any questions, further questions, while any of the panelists are speaking, please do get that over to me. All right, Gina, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. To lead other people, the first and most important thing is you have to lead yourself first. Ultimately, you are the common denominator that you take into every situation, every moment of every day. So self-review is vital. But I think it's important to say that self-review is not about that critical voice in your head saying, you shouldn't have done this, you should have done this. Why did you do that? That parrot that keeps squawking at you. Self-review is about being very honest, not brutal, celebrating those things that you do well, and recognizing that there are lots of areas that need development. And remember that life is learning, and throughout our life, we learn. And I think trusting that we know our strengths and we know our areas for development is really important. Because for the best people, there is no room for ego. This is not about being the best boy or girl in the class. This is about recognizing that you have strengths, expertise, creativity, experience, all of those things, all of that skill set, you have those to bring. And there may be other people who are better than you at some things, but you have a unique set of gifts to give to your customers, to other people. And it's important that you have a sense of self-belief. So you need to do the deep dive work yourself. And I think it's really important that you don't skip this, because if you truly know yourself and you know yourself in a constructive, positive way, then you give yourself the best platform to continue to grow and move forward. The only failure, as far as I can see it, is the failure to try something or the failure to learn. And I find it quite interesting how many people are frightened of failure, and yet that's when we learn the most. Not only do we learn by our mistakes, but we learn resilience, we learn perseverance, and so on. Everything we do is a choice. What we say, whether we say it at all, when we say it, how we say it, what we do, what we think, is our choice. 95% of our thoughts are habitual. And so it's really important that we recognize what are our beliefs and how are they serving us or not, and what's the quality of our thinking. Because if you want a better quality of life, including trust, then you need to think better thoughts. Take radical responsibility for yourself. You are the person who is responsible for every choice you make, and every choice has consequences. Even not choosing and just letting things ride actually has consequences, and very often they're the most far-reaching consequences when we let things drift. If you don't know, say so. And we're moving in a world where the pace of change has never been greater. Most of us have, in the last few months, been out of our comfort zone, some of us hugely. So this is about being brave enough, having the courage to step out and recognize that you're not an expert the first time you do it. And I think if you're upfront with other people and say, I'm learning, but I'm working on it, then that's very much more important than trying to blag your way into things and say that you know what you're doing when actually you don't. People will follow you if you have a vision that you believe in and that you have a really strong sense of why. And I think trusting yourself, trusting that your vision is important and being able to communicate that is a vital part of leading other people. And in times of uncertainty, if you believe that someone has your best interests at heart, is doing the best they can do, and that they have integrity, compassion, and the courage to do what's right, people will trust you and will follow you, even if the decisions that you're making aren't particularly popular, because they'll know you're doing it for the right reason. But you have to trust yourself. You have to trust that you are doing it for the right reason, and that you're not doing it because you think it looks good or because it's going to get you out of trouble in the short term. Remember, there is no room for ego. What are your core values? Do you know what they are? Do you know what behaviors you need to model? Because trust yourself and other people trusting you is about you modeling the very behaviors that you want from them, being consistent, not being moody, not changing your mind every 2 minutes and being different thing to different people. It's about demonstrating trust, respect for yourself and others, and using the same criteria for yourself as you do others. No more draconian or no easier, the same. And people will recognize that if you demonstrate those values, if you demonstrate those behaviors, then it's much easier to expect that from other people and to hold them to account. To gauge your credibility, well, look at people's reactions when things go well and when things don't. And if something goes wrong, the first question to ask yourself is, how have I contributed to this? Not in a way that beats you up, but in a way that you are open and honest to the answer. So if someone isn't doing something you want, ask yourself, have my expectations been clear? remember that what you say isn't necessarily what people hear. Can you trust yourself when things don't go well? Do you manage your emotions? Or are you someone who flies into a temper? All of those things, being able to trust yourself in every situation, that you will be the best version of you, that you'll be authentic, genuine, makes the real difference. And then if you want to gauge your credibility with other people, ask for feedback, but be open to what they say. Even if at times you think it's unfair, look for why are they saying it. Because remember, perception is everything. So you may have a very different perception of how you operate to other people, perhaps people within your team or your customers or your suppliers. And it's really important that you gauge exactly whether or not there's truth. Because people say it doesn't make it true necessarily, but you have to be open to understanding where's that coming from. So trust in yourself is really important. And I think there are many who think, I've got to know all the answers before I can do it. I've got to be the best at doing this. And I don't think that's the case. What you need to be is honest about where you are. And very often it's not those people who are incredibly expert who are the best teachers. You know, I know if I want to learn new technology, I don't go to the geek. I go to someone who is just ahead of me and who can explain to me in terms that I can understand. And so very much it's about trusting that if you have the right intention, the right energy, the right vibration about what you're doing, that you really care, that that will come across.
Definitely. Sorry, Gina, just to interject. I think that's an amazing point. To know that, you know, there's learners at different stages, and you putting yourself out there in your position, need to be confident in your position and attract the learners that are going to come in under you, rather than going for the top tier when maybe that's not what you're meant to be teaching, especially maybe not yet. But there's always going to be people at a more entry level that need that solid foundation in whatever you're going to be bringing to the table. So yeah, definitely, that's a really great point. Thanks, Gina, for that one.
Thank you. But ultimately, if you don't trust you, then expecting other people to trust you is, I think, unreasonable. So your beliefs about yourself, your understanding, and one of the best ways to gauge whether or not that trust is actually deserved is, what's the evidence? I talk to lots of clients who are coaches or trainers, and I ask them, do you make a positive difference? How do you know? Where's the evidence? And if the evidence is that you do make a constructive and positive difference, then it's important that you actually own that.
I can't get my mind over that point. It's an amazing point, because that really builds confidence. Once you've found your level and you know this is where I am at the moment, and you can really like build a strong springboard off of that and attract those people that are coming in on that level, I think it's perfect. Like, for an example, just to give you a practical example, working out. There's different coaches for working out on different levels. There's the ones that are like for sport experts. A beginner's not going to go to them because there's no point. And then there's ones that are more foundational levels that, you know, the beginner's going to like really thrive under them and make the most of their training. So I think that will apply to most disciplines. So yeah, no, fantastic. So have confidence in the level where you are, and really
and recognize that your best version of you today is not going to be the best version of you in a week, a month, a year, because we're leveling and we're growing, or hopefully we are all the time.
And then as well, you bring that crowd with you along on that journey. So if they've been with you from, and I guess that's how you build a strong, like we'll come on to Barnaby a bit later, but a strong kind of brand and following that's been with you throughout the progressions of what you offer. So yeah.
And I guess, Gina, in reality, that's a constant evolution to some extent. I mean, you sort of said about if you can't have confidence in yourself, how can others have confidence in you? Ironically, here's an insight: with everything that I do professionally in terms of my commentary, my presenting and all that sort of thing, as well as what I train, I actually suffer from generalized anxiety disorder, which is really ironic. And it eats me. And one of the key things that I suffer from, even now, I have confidence that I know it, but I will have the ugly head reared of imposter syndrome. And it's something I hadn't heard of until I'd been training for a little while. And it was actually a previous social media manager that was working for my organization that coined that phrase. And then I heard it was quite a widely used one. I went, that's it. That is what I have. I start questioning. And for example, one of the things that I had to accept to myself is, by doing this training does not mean I'm trying to say I am the best presenter out there. Far from it. I mean, I was cringing every time Daniel was saying that I did that presentation that was about, you know, being exceptional online facilitator and presenter. It's like, no, I really was not trying to say that or anything like that. But you've got to sort of go with a confidence. I've got a sounding board in my wife as well, that if I struggle just a little bit too much before I go to a training session, sometimes even when I get back, I find that I think, oh, that went really bad. And then my PA contacts them, gets the feedback, and they're waxing lyrical about it, and they've really improved. And I can see Fiona, for example, nodding her head there. It's, you know, it seems to be a common battle, doesn't it?
It is, and there's a few things I'd like to pick up from what you said, and very valuable. First and foremost, it's not about being the best presenter. It's being the best presenter that you can be.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that you are going to give the very best service that you can, and that you will develop and you will grow. You know, there's an old saying, fake it till you make it, and that's particularly useful in terms of confidence, because most of us at some point suffer from self-doubt. That's part of the human condition, really, but it can become very destructive. So first and foremost is actually, was it Gandhi, I think, who said, be the change you want in others. So ultimately, in the first thing, if you are feeling nervous, project that sense of, I'm in control, even when inside you're quaking and you know your tummy's going round and your legs are jelly. But the other thing is that there's a voice that goes on in our head. And I was talking to a client last week who was talking about the voice, and she refers to it as the parrot, because it squawks and it goes on and on with the same phrase over and over again. And I said to her, you know, with parrots, that if they're in captivity and they want the parrot to be quiet, then they simply put a cloth over the cage and the parrot goes quiet. And if that doesn't work, then you could always shoot the blessed parrot, because it's your choice, it's your parrot, it's not real. That made her laugh. And I think laughter, being light about it, being playful, is really important, because the more we focus on the heaviness of I can't, I don't know, the more challenging it becomes. And the interesting thing for me about stepping out of your comfort zone's like a duvet. In the winter, it's really lovely to be wrapped up in a thick duvet. But in the summer, it becomes unbearable. It becomes stultifying. And when we step out of our comfort zone, instead of it being frightening, think about it being unfamiliar. Because the interesting thing with comfort zones is once you've done something a few times, that unfamiliar becomes familiar. And so it doesn't feel so frightening. And the comfort zone expands. And so I would say, trust yourself. You are all, every one of us is capable of more than we ever thought possible. And if you trust that you don't have to know all the answers, it's not about the whole journey. I was driving along a road and the road was bendy, I only see the little bit of road that's in front of me. So as long as you can see what your next step is, then trust that the step after that and the step after that and the step after that will reveal itself. And if you are really finding that you are having huge anxiety around things, that you don't trust yourself, get some help. You don't have to do this on your own. And I think many people think that if I ask for help, it's a sign of weakness. And I would say very definitely, asking for help is a sign of strength. It's not about being needy. It's about, if I don't know how to do something, or I need an expertise, I'll go to someone who has that expertise and I'll get them to show me. Because it's so much easier when somebody else models it. So why would you spend loads and loads and loads of time and effort and, you know, headspace trying to do something that you don't know, when there's somebody who can actually say, have you thought of this? Or here's a strategy, or let me model it for you. It doesn't make any sense.
I've even found that with the training it's not just about training on everything you do, but it's everything you didn't know how to do before is even more beneficial, because you've kind of identified whether it's your own self-judgments, whether it's your mistakes, whether it's your concerns, or you just find holes, including, especially when you come out of a training and you suddenly find there's a hole. Instead of beating myself up about it now, if there's ever something comes out, I'm like, oh, do you know what? If I didn't know that, others may not have known it. So I'm now going to grow as a trainer. So again, I'm not that sat there trying to go, I know absolutely everything about my subject that I'm training, whatever it happened to be. I have focused on it, and the people I'm training don't have the time, the ability with their job to focus on it. They're doing 1,000,001 things, whereas I'm now coming in for that moment in time, however long the session is. We're now focusing, and I get to focus on the content day after day and have confidence that I either know it or I've gone finding out about it.
Nobody these days can be an expert on everything. And anybody who tells you that they are, or tells themselves that they are, they're actually, they're kidding themselves.
Yeah.
This is about how, and I think we're moving into a new era of consciousness. I think that leadership and business are going to require a very different sort of people. And they're going to be people who recognize that collaboration and sharing ideas and creativity and being able to say, well, look, I'll do that because that's a bit that I'm good at. You do this. Let's work together. Let's find a different way of moving forward. Those are the businesses. Those are the people who are going to thrive and succeed. Those who think that in order to succeed, you've got to be the fount of all preferment. You've got to be the fount of all knowledge. They're going to burn themselves out. They're kidding themselves because they can't possibly know it. And they will initially perhaps make progress, but it won't last. It'll just dissipate and go.
So, sorry, Jean, to cut you off, but we need to move on to the next question because this segment's coming up. So has anyone got any questions so far on this, or any comments that they would like to make? If not, we're going to move on to the next question in this section of trust in your expertise. And how important is it to review your material personally and have it reviewed externally?
Let's go with the personal one first. If you're not reviewing your materials and looking at it with a critical eye, I mean critical in the sense of looking to see how will that look to somebody else who is seeing it. You know, is it grammatically correct? Is it spelt correctly? Does it look good? Does it give people the impression that I want them to have of me and my business? That is at its most simplistic level. But actually for me, if I'm creating a training program, always the question I ask myself is, what do I want them, the people who have been on that training program, what do I want them to know, understand, be, do differently at the end of it than they did at the beginning? And I create a storyboard. So when I'm looking at my materials, does this tell a story? Is it the right story? Is there a better way of doing it? And I think having it reviewed externally is really good practice. At a simplistic level, I'm an author and I proofread my books time and time and time and time again, but they can go to the editor and to professional proofreaders, and when they come back, there's still mistakes because we see what we want to see, and in the end, we become word blind. So at a practical level, it's around the crossing the T's and dotting the I's. that also at a fundamental level, is this delivering what we are saying it should deliver? You know, when you look at a tin of beans, you know what you're going to get. There's going to be beans in the tin, and they either come in salted water or they come in a tomato sauce or whatever. Well, the same principle is true of your programs or your courses. So having somebody else look at that with a fresh pair of eyes, a different perspective, different level of expertise and experience, I think is pretty vital. It's one of the reasons I went for accreditation from CPD. It's why when I started off life as a head teacher for 20 years, I left in 2004, but we went for external kite masters. We were looking for excellence, but we wanted other people to come in, measure, say, is that excellent in your opinion? If not, we'll review. If it is, that's great, we'll move on, because now we've got to build on that excellence to get even better. So it's a two-edged sword. It's no good just leaving it all to the externals and waiting for other people to tell you it's good, bad, or indifferent. Because if that's the case, then you're not actually taking responsibility. So you need to take responsibility for, is it accurate? Does it do the job? But then having external validation and an external pair of eyes gives you the confidence that other people have recognized that it's doing what you want it to. And then it gives it the credibility for your customers, your clients, because they've not only got your reputation, but the reputation of those who've reviewed it externally. So it adds hugely to the credibility.
Fantastic. Which is, yeah, like Gina said, what CPDSO is all about. Like many of you know, and thank you for being a part of us and having our kite mark standard of quality there. Barnaby, Chris, do you have anything to add to this part?
I was
reviewing your materials.
Yeah, I was going to say there's two things that jumped out at me there. Is that one of the most obvious ways of constantly reviewing is that each course, every time I've completed a course, there'll be something that will come up that I'll go, that didn't work how I wanted to, or a comment, an experience, a question will come up and you'll go, oh, do you know what? I'm going to sneak that into my next course and it's really good.
Absolutely.
But you've also got to make sure that you're not throwing the baby out with the water, because there's times you can come out that it just didn't work for that person or that group of people. And you have to, you've got to not be defensive, because it might be right that you kind of go, no, that really does miss the mark. But sometimes it just might not be to throw it out completely. It just wasn't right for them. So you kind of got to get that balance right between the two.
Going back to trust, I think you've got to trust your gut feel, your intuition, to know whether or not it is right. And you make a very good point. And I think if I look at all of my programs, and I've been doing this for over 30 years, that what you see now and how it was in its first iteration are often very different, because not only have I grown, and so I've updated and up-leveled the program, but in the light of people's feedback and the light of experience, things grow and ideas come. And those people who that's it done, and it's in concrete and like it or lump it, that's how it is. For me, that's not good practice. These things should be consistently evolving as times change, needs change, and as you change. And today you have the version of me that is based on my knowledge and understanding, but I'm constantly learning myself. I'm engaging with other people. I'm reading. I'm doing other people's programs, and so that then becomes incorporated in what I do and how I deliver. And so for me, it's never settled. But you're right, lots of people, the government are a really great example of throwing the baby out with the bathwater. They do it consistently. Not to be cynical, I have this idea of politicians doing policy on the back of, it used to be a fag packet, but now it's an envelope, because people mustn't encourage people to smoke. And it becomes policy the next day. And I think we need to be the judge of what's right to stay and what we should be shifting and moving and changing and evolving each time.
I would say during this lockdown as well, I've almost had an epiphany on this subject, and crossing over into what Barnaby's going to talk about in a little while, is that with the lockdown and sadly more time on our hands and trying to find other ways to sort of provide both the training and the marketing of it, etc., is that I even went back to the way that it was messaged on my website, in my literature, in the way I speak about it. And I suddenly went, do you know what? Unknown to me, because I've been so busy working, the phrase that I picked up on was that I now actually understand what I'm providing a lot more than I did when I wrote all the stuff that, you know, Barnaby, your speciality is that we have to, not just the content itself, but the understanding of that content develops over time as well.
Yeah, no, sorry, Jean. One of the things I would put a slide rule over your material, and that slide rule has on it three things, which is the way people learn. And people learn kinesthetically, they learn visually, and they learn verbally. And one of the things that often I see is people default to their own preference for learning when they're presentee, or they present very kinesthetically. Actually, your audience will be across all three dimensions. So when you're reviewing, make sure that you're taking an audience perspective, and the safest way to do that is just review all your material from a verbal point of view, a visual point of view, and a kinesthetic point of view. So how do you get people? And that's been a real challenge. The kinesthetic side has been really a challenge in the online world that we live in at the moment, because we can't run around rooms, touch each other, get people to stand up, do whatever. That's all now not possible. So that you have to work really hard now in online training to really develop kinesthetic aspect of your presentation. So what the change is as the context for the presentation changes, alter your kinesthetic, your verbal, and your visual presentation.
I think that's a really good point. And I think, you know, it's things like, do you have a sense of what the person who's on the receiving end is experiencing? I'm sure there are those of you that have been to programs, courses, where it's death by PowerPoint, you know, slide 173 that the person delivering is reading it out. My particular pet hate, because I'm a quick reader, and I think, well, if I'm going to read it, I'll buy a book. I've come because I want that enriched by the way in which you're delivering. So it is about being honest, trusting your expertise, but being open to the fact that actually you need to work on your delivery. You need to work on every aspect of what you're doing. It's a craft. And, you know, if you're at the beginning of doing this, then you're going to make mistakes, and that's okay, but don't keep making the same ones. And, you know, the transition on to online for many people has been really challenging, because the energy that you need to give out to get through a screen to engage and touch people is very different to when you're in a room and you can have that interaction and see the nuance of the body language. You know, we're talking to 21 people, but I can only see 4. One of those is me. So how do you know that the other people are engaged, or they're writing their shopping list or doing the ironing? You don't. But ultimately, you have to engage in a way that you hope is going to really get people on board. And then the way to make sure that it has done is to ask. And that's another reason why having it reviewed externally, not just by organisations like CPD, but, you know, trying it out with your colleagues and doing a dummy run and saying, okay, which bits work and which bits stick, and being open to that feedback.
That part I find difficult though, because it's how do you get, like, say, a half day or a full day's worth of training? How can you run that past a friend or a family member? My wife would kill me if I tried to do that in reality.
It's not the whole day, but there'll be big parts of the day that you'll feel really confident about.
Yes.
Maybe a couple of bits that you think, oh, I'm not so sure about that. And it wouldn't be your wife, but maybe there's a colleague or somebody that you have worked with, and you say, would you mind, and could we swap? I'd be really grateful if I could just run this past you, not necessarily in real time, because if there are activities and things, but can I use you as a sounding board? And I want you to be really honest about, is this engaging? What have you got from it? And that's where I think the business of collaboration comes back in. You know, I've got a group of people that I can go to and say, I want to try this out. and know that they will give it me both barrels in reality, if they feel that it's not fitting the brief. And having that capacity and being brave enough to stand up and do that, I think is really, I know that my own capacity to run training sessions has increased hugely because of trying things out and getting people to give me their feedback.
All right, guys, we're going to have to wrap it up there, Gina, on that one. I did let that section run slightly longer because obviously in the poll, that one was quite high demand. And so is the next section, which is all about, again, it's internal trust, but delivery skills. So we're going to be looking, the last point kind of touched on it, the last question, but now we're going to be going deeper in it with Chris Dawes leading on this section. Again, Gina and Barnaby free to chip in. And again, please, guys, feel free to chip in at any point. Did get a message from Claire Marie. She said, fantastic, excellent idea of a storyboard for training. I love it. And I think there's a message from Katie there as well to everyone. So you can have a read of that. But now we're going to go forward with Chris while I read this message. And Chris, so what are some of the steps you took? Because I know Chris, I met him personally over there in Swindon, and we had I don't know, we was talking for ages. But he's got a really interesting story there. So what are some of the steps you took to build trust in your ability to present? Because he wasn't always the Chris that we see today.
No, definitely not, for better or for worse. That's the key point I open up with on this, is saying that, you know, where it says what steps did I have to build trust? Well, that's because initially I had none. I genuinely didn't. At university, I was paralyzed by fear. In between the drinking games, we had to stand up and give presentations, probably, I would imagine, every other week, something like that, because it was a business and IT degree, and I just couldn't do it. I could hold court in the pub with the lads, no problem, but I couldn't stand up and present. And sadly, in this country, I don't think we do enough in reality at education level. America, they're big on sort of the public speaking and what have you. Over here, if you're lucky enough to go to a posh school, you might get debate club as something to work on public speaking. But in the real world, at university, all they did is they just gave us more and more of it to do. Well, all that did was reinforce my insecurities, my terror of actually standing up and doing it. But I realized that if I didn't, I wasn't going to get this degree, so I had to do it. So the first thing that I did, and I would encourage everybody to do, is that kind of step back and have a think about it. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? And why am I thinking and feeling those things? And that's going to be very personal. I mean, there'll be some common trends, of course, but you know, you need to get an understanding of what it is that's making your heart race, that's making you resist standing up, that's wanting you to sleep the night before a training course but not able to. What are you thinking? Because as soon as I did that, I was able to step back and actually start creating new perspectives on things. You know, changing the perspective of it is the most common one. We naturally put a negative slant on it. Answering some of my concerns or questions, including, as Gina was saying, do I need to go and get some training myself to make things better? And some of it actually is tricks of the mind, because some of them might be a condition rather than an objection, if you will, that you can't change it at all. So therefore you create a trick of the mind that says, and I don't mean, by the way, that dreaded one you always hear as an alleged piece of advice of a picture of your audience in the underwear or something. I don't recommend that one, definitely not. But you know, find a trick of the mind that will work, that will get rid of that concern. But if you haven't worked out what those issues are that's stopping you trusting your belief in yourself to present, how can you possibly address it? After university, I went into business-to-business software sales. And I would then be doing everything, whether it was meetings, demonstrations, presentations, large seminars, online demonstrations. So this remote thing, thankfully for me, isn't new. I've been doing it for probably a decade or more. And sales training for resellers. And initially I went through it, had to go through it all again, because in my head, I'd convinced myself this is no longer my lecturers or uni mates or something. These are professional people. And I thought I had to go through this whole thing again, but I realized that The only difference in reality is a potential tone change. You know, like, for example, I remember a meeting in London being greeted by a butler as I got out of the lift on the top floor at Rothschild's. That one, you tend to leave your humour out a little bit and you make sure you're a little bit smarter. But, you know, the rest of the time is that you stay true to yourself. And my biggest claim to fame is I got accused of making IT entertaining, which is no mean feat, so I'm very proud of that one. and to sort of complete that circle before I move on to the other points, is that what that then led on to is that I now professionally commentate on motorsport. I host awards nights. I present on vlogs and podcasts. I got one tonight for Castle Combe Circuit, which will be live on the Facebook and YouTube page. All these things that I was terrified of, I now do. And this is why Open Doors Training was born. And it is, Open Doors is of course my name, but it's about the doors that it can open. And everybody needs to realize that the opportunities it gives to them, if they can have that trust in themselves to present, to train their expertise, it will make a big difference. Some of the examples that I came up with for myself to address my concerns: perception. How long do the nerves actually last? The honest answer for most people is that not very long. Once you get going, I mean, it was the same for me even here now. Once I've got going, I'm into it, and Daniel's got a big task to shut me up now. Adrenaline. You know, if we're terrified, we have the adrenaline coursing. But don't forget, if you're really excited, if you're really proud, the adrenaline's coursing. So it's up to you on what slant you give it. It's the same as these extreme sport junkies. I'm terrified about the splat when I hit the ground. They're excited about the rush as they're going down to the ground. It's very different which way they think it, but we are in control of it. I reminded myself, and hopefully you can kind of feel it now. It's a bit harder when it's remote, but it's still the same, is that I'm not suddenly becoming a presenter and I'm telling you all of this information. I'm having a conversation with my audience. And I think that was the biggest realization for me with all of it, whether I'm training, whether I'm presenting, is I'm actually doing nothing other than having a conversation with my 1 or 1,000 or 100,000 people that are stood in front of me. One of my biggest pride moments or pride things with my commentary is that I could be, Barnaby and I were talking earlier about Brands Hatch near Barnaby and commentate there. And one of my favorite events there is the American Speed Fest, where it's the Euro NASCAR. And we have something like 40,000 people there, all outside around this circuit, and I'm up there. And yet the compliment that stuck to me the most is that the amount of people that fed back via social media that I make them feel like I'm talking directly to them. And I think that was a key point, that not only as a technique, so I'm not training that as a technique, but actually for me personally, is I find it easier to have a conversation, because we all do that every day. So to think of presentation in that way. I'm not information dumping. I'm taking them on a journey. You know, telling them what I'm about to show them it, and then tell them what I've just shown them, and trying to inform, motivate, win over, or persuade my audience. A realization as well that your audience, contrary to what you convince yourself, don't actually want you to fail. They are there supporting you. And you know how you find that out is that if you smile at your audience, they smile back. Now, you've naturally relaxed yourself by smiling anyway, but you're going to prove that point, that they are there, probably going, thank God it's you, not me, that's up there. But it's still, they are there supporting you, willing you to succeed. And so don't, because that's what we think. We think they're all against me. They're waiting for me to fail. They're ready to laugh. They're ready to stop. No, they're supporting you. They really want you to succeed. Another one is that no one actually knows my script. So why am I worried that they're suddenly going to go, oh, he's done that in the wrong order. He's forgotten that bit there. They don't know. So just relax and have confidence that you are sharing knowledge. The order it comes out might vary from time to time, and it doesn't matter. No one's checking on you. They don't know. We're not asking rocket science of ourselves. If I sum up what someone's asking me to do when I present or train, they're expecting me to be me. There's no blueprint, in my opinion, for training. None of my training is about training a blueprint presenter. It is about giving you that confidence to be you in front of everyone else. But the problem is we get so nervous that we then go into ourselves. We're then about 60% of ourselves in front of the audience. We then don't feel good about it because we know we've only been about 60% of ourselves. And yet all the audience are asking, all that they deserve is you to be you, possibly a slightly exaggerated version of you. The me that's doing this now and on the mic at a circuit or whatever is an exaggerated version, or again, my wife would kill me if she had to put up with that every single day. Not painting a good picture of her, actually, am I? I'm a bit worried about that. Hopefully she can't hear me. But the fact, people, if you notice when someone's really nervous, when they're conversing with you or when they're presenting, they will try to resist eye contact wherever possible. And that is a natural instinct, is that I can't. But actually turn it on its head, because that moment that you make eye contact with members of your audience is not only good for your audience, so that's a technique, but when we're putting about having confidence in ourselves, is that you will connect. You will feel that, go on, you can do it, from the members of the audience as well. You will feel them interacting with what you're telling them. So the eye contact is absolutely vital for your, you know, feeling your own trust, creating that trust. I don't know whether this is controversial, but I genuinely believe this. I found that it's about getting over, and it kind of takes what Gina was saying even further. It's about getting over that I must be right, I have to be right, I can't possibly be wrong. Is that actually I'm not doing that. I'm putting a buffet out for people to take whatever they agree with. I'm not being dictatorial in the way that I'm trying to do it. I'm just saying, look, from my experience, and this is what I've heard, and this is a school of thought, you know, I'm paraphrasing there and wrapping it in a wet lettuce really, but it is about sort of putting it out there and saying, you know, this is from my focus that we get to do, we're talking about earlier, this is what I have found, take what you will. That means that I can never offend even the most knowledgeable person in that room, because I've not been dictatorial to make them go, no, you're absolutely wrong. At worst, they're going to go, okay, that's a different way of thinking about it. I hadn't thought about it that way. Or they're going to go, I actually feel good about myself because I did already know that, or something that contradicts that. But if you go dictatorial, you've got them like a rat in the corner. They're going to feel that they're going to come out, defensive. So if you take your audience through that, and it's important to think more about your audience than yourself, is my personal experience as well. It's about them, what they're going to gain from it, what they're going to, helping them grow or feel potential ways. And then at least some may learn more, some may feel motivated, some may laugh, hopefully in the right places, you never know. Some may connect with me or the information I'm sharing. Some may grow in confidence, as I say, when they realize they did already know something. It's not a problem if they already knew it. You must all have it yourself. There's times when you go, oh, good. I did know that. I was right about that. That's good. I'm really happy about that. Or worst case scenario, it was a gap in my knowledge. What a great opportunity, and we touched on this with Gina earlier, is what an awesome opportunity that I actually get to grow in knowledge now, because I will get in context that information from this person that has had more experiences than me, different experiences than me. And as I said, that sneakily then appears in my training content next time, probably. Why not? I'm a sponge. I make no bones about it. Once all that is accepted, I get to relax into my personality shining through, as I say, again, for better or for worse, and just sort of working on the mechanics, if you will, like delivery, preparation, speed, pauses, breathing, volume, eye contact, body language and movement, starting, finishing and structure, all those kind of things. But what I would advocate to everybody is stop punishing yourself. Try to develop, and Gina brilliantly said about how the fact that you constantly need to sort of improve yourself where necessary, but remind yourself, I use an analogy of learning to drive. When you go to learn to drive, you're subconsciously incompetent. you don't know what you don't know and are rubbish at. Then the driving instructor starts taking you through the things, and you now become consciously incompetent. You're still rubbish, but you know what you're rubbish at. And you're now working on it with your driving instructor. Then you eventually become consciously competent. So you're now better at it, but you've got to think it through. Right, remember, mirror, signal, maneuver, et cetera, et cetera. And it's at that point that your instructor puts you forward for your test. Where you really become a driver is after you've passed your test and everything now becomes subconsciously competent. You don't need to think about putting your indicators on. You do need to put them on, for those of you who don't, by the way. But you don't think about it. Everything just happens naturally. I went through the same journey as a business presenter, as a commentator, all of those things in the early stages. If I can, in my mind, hear myself at the beginning, it makes me cringe. Because I'm having to go, right, I need to remember to do this. I mean, got to mention that. I've got to say it this way. I've got to include that, etc. And you're so focused on what you have to do, it's not a natural you coming through. Don't beat yourself up about it, except that you've got to go through that journey. And as you're going through those phases, feel them. Feel yourself go through that. You've now gone, do you know what? I don't need to keep reminding myself, or I've got, I even do it now, is that I'll have paper in my commentary boxes, in my studios, whatever it might be, that will still remind me of the things I know, so that if in the heat of the moment, my mind goes blank, it's there. So I don't have to worry about it. I can just look straight down at it. And it means that I now get to bring me out. And as I say, I'm now only being me plus 10% when I'm presenting anyway. So in short, I helped calm my nerves and over-analysis of the wrong things, put my focus on my audience's gains, and accepted that I don't have to be right, and fine-tuned some of those practical elements. The only exception, as I say, that sometimes does come, and I just have to accept and battle the one demon, is the imposter syndrome, that even with what I do, what I love to do, and get paid to do all sorts of things here, there, but I will still make myself go, should I really be instructing people? Surely the other trainers out there, they're better than me. They know something I don't. No.
So
You've got the
strange.
experience.
Yeah, it's such a strange thing. It always rears its ugly head somehow.
Yep.
Even after you've done great, you've done like 10 great sessions, you've done on the trot, and then all of a sudden it's just there like, oh, but something, and it's just like, oh man, when is it ever gonna go? But I think it is one of those things we have to just learn to live with, and we're gonna overcome it. It's gonna be there for a moment.
Absolutely.
That moment
I mean,
passes, it's gone.
To the point, Daniel, where in reality I had to pass. It's always important to get those feedback, isn't it, from our candidates. But I actually had to pass that over to, I got a virtual PA and get my virtual PA to do it, because I was too scared about going and finding out, because in my head that went really bad. I have the only nearest to a negative I've ever got was actually there was a bit too much in too short a period of time, and that was because they forced me to include an extra module, but they wanted it in the same time. And I've learned from that, and I've now got the integrity that will say, no, it's not going in there, or we'll go longer. But the rest of the time, it's been like waxing lyrical. And I've had some really emotional stories of the what it's done to help them. And yet I will still, my imposter syndrome will raise its head, and I can't go and find out. So I've gone, right, you go and do it. I've got a PR lady as well that brings it together in case studies. And I go, right, you two, there's the contact, you two get on. I'm too scared to worry about it.
And I think again, look, the poll goes to show that this is the fact and the case for most people. Like it shows on the poll. I'll share the results with you again quickly so you can see them. Trust in the quality of your content and your ability to deliver it, the highest, 85%. So, you know, it shows that we all suffer with this, but it is something that it's not something that dictates your quality or your credibility. It's just something that comes up. It's like a feeling. It's not it's not logical. A lot of the time, it's not based on logic. It's just a feeling that comes up, and if we learn to ignore it, we definitely will be better off for it. Thank you so much, Chris, for that answer for that one. So the next question, quickly.
I'll just say, I think, and I absolutely agree with everything that you've said, Chris, that it's not about ignoring it when you have that sense of imposter syndrome. It's what meaning you make of it. You are exposed when you stand in front of a group of people. It's a very exposed position. All eyes and ears are on you, and it's up to you to deliver. And you need to breathe. If you're well prepared, all of the things that Chris has been talking about will work. But ultimately, it's about harnessing that feeling. And if rather than burying it or trying to ignore it, you harness that feeling and use it to help propel you to be a better version of you, to keep learning, to keep growing, then it can be a really powerful force to actually help you improve.
And accepting that not everything has to have an answer.
Absolutely. And nor are you going, I mean, you are perfect in your imperfections. And they did some research about what do people remember in terms, they had great orators, and they looked at what people remembered. And it was actually the people who had seeming flaws in their delivery that they remembered. And I believe that part of that is because those were the people who seemed human. Correct. Rather than this is very orchestrated and there's no heart in it. But when they see you as the person, that you care, that you're passionate about what you do, and that you are really trying to make the most positive difference that you can, and you're doing that with integrity, I think people actually connect with that in a much greater way.
And taking that further is that what you hope in, saying about connecting with your flaws is that people being able to relate to it is a really good one. But if you relied solely on that, that you've got that many of people that are going to sit there and go, oh, I can relate to that. What I've found really useful is actually from every training course is that it's okay to soak up as a sponge the experiences that other people then start offering you as their experiences. Now, it doesn't mean that I then go in and sort of do the stand-up comic approach of, this morning I went and did this when I'd been in bed. In reality, you don't sort of claim that it's like, I've had this experience. You turn around and say, well, in another course, we had somebody else that was talking about this, and they'll go, yes, that's it. So you're able to grow from other people's imperfections as well as your own.
Absolutely. As long as that's done with integrity, and I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's it. Again, honesty and trust are like that, aren't they? The more honest you are, the more trusting you will come across, and the more trust you will gain. So with the change from face-to-face to online delivery, what are some of the key differences that need to be upskilled, Chris?
Well, you'll be pleased to know, Daniel, this is probably a bit quicker, this one, so don't panic, mate.
Okay, I was looking at the time, I was like, oh man.
We've got to do it. We'll get through this one a bit quicker. I mean, the reality is, I think to save time, apologies, this is probably better to be done almost as a list, is that, some of the areas that I think stand out for me is that if you look at things like clarity and tone become even more important. We don't know whether there's glitches in the audio, so you need to make sure that it's being as clear as possible. And actually, I found this as a positive because it's a great opportunity for us all to be working on that verbal skills side of our delivery, because we can't hide behind any physical crutch in the slightest. We actually get to exercise our verbal side even more. Trying to keep your speed under control, which I'm not doing well today purely because Daniel scares me and I've got to keep the speed going. I'm only joking, mate.
I know, I'm not scared. Look at my smile. I just caught myself. I was like, man.
But it is important, if you're doing something where you're not up against time, is try to keep your speed under control, because it's one of those areas that if you allow yourself, you'll just run away. I've got a phrase for some of you any of you that saw the first presentation. I've got a real mantra that is about keeping your brain in front of your mouth. Whereas what normally happens is that we get nervous, we talk quicker, and then suddenly our brain's going, hold up, I can't remember what I'm saying next, or what you've already said, I'm not listening. Keep it slow, keep the pauses in there, and put it the other way around, and you will always be in control, especially when I've said is that it is about having this conversation. And if you think when you're having just a natural conversation with someone else, your brain is ahead and you're sort of thinking what you're going to say next and what that means. And then you're listening to what they've said and it's then gone on to your next bit. The quicker you speak, the harder it is to keep all of that under control. It's probably more important to do more of the, summaries or repeating some of the key points. because some of the key issues you try to make, or key points you try to make, may be lost down to an audio glitch online. It could be lost because people's concentration fades in and out because we're sat in the comfort of our own homes in most cases, and a dog suddenly nuzzles against our feet or whatever it might be. It just happens. So if you've got key points, repeat them and emphasize them more than you probably would do in a physical environment. Still give it the conviction, the enthusiasm, the passion that you genuinely feel about your subject. Everyone tells me, calm down, Chris, it's only public speaking you're talking about. But I'm afraid I'm passionate and I'm enthusiastic about it. And you need to do that, possibly exaggerate it a little bit more than you would need to do in a physical situation. The reason being is that those emotions are all contagious, and you'll carry people along with you if you're able to do that. If you think it is boring, what you're about to talk about, it will come over as boring. Nothing is boring if presented with the right level of enthusiasm. And I can assure you, I've worked on my training with some very challenging industries. I can tell you now. Integrity, as you said, Gina, I won't mention them. I won't mention the industries, but we've had quite a few. And yet you can still deliver absolutely everything with the right level of conviction and enthusiasm. When you are presenting on here, and I would include that even if I was off camera. And for anybody who saw my presentation, I did an example where I covered up my camera and I spoke when I was smiling and I spoke when I wasn't smiling. It really makes a big difference, and so I encourage you to do that. If you're on camera, it's obvious why it's important, but it is actually not just about how you look, it is about your delivery. It will impact it. Sit tall in your seat, and I know we could be in some lovely comfortable seats. Mine's not actually. I've got a numb bum now, just in case you wanted to know. No idea. But if you sit tall, you're going to get more in the way of oxygen through your body, which will help. It will give you better energy. It will give you better use of your lungs and how you talk. And it also gives you a greater presence and makes you look more interested. You know, if I'm just sort of sat back here, I don't exactly look particularly interested to you now, do I? Whereas the reality is, sit as tall as you possibly can. You would think that actually body language and movement isn't important when we're doing something like this. And I disagree. It has less than we can do with it, but it is still, I would say, relatively important in terms of it. That includes using your hands. Now, actually, I'm a nightmare with my hands. I know I am. Try to use them to emphasize a point, but don't overuse them. If I'm constantly sat here doing like this, which occasionally when I get overexcited, I know I do, but try to limit them as much as possible, but do use them. Do be prepared to emphasize your points when you are getting enthused about something.
So, Chris, just going to put you on pause for a second.
I wasn't quick enough, was I?
No, we're going to move on to the next section now. No, I'm joking. We've got Amanda. She wants to chip in. Amanda's got something to say. Amanda, go for it.
Hi there. Hi. I hope you can all hear me okay. My internet connection is quite unstable today. So that's why I've had my video off. Can you hear me? Can you hear me okay? Okay. I just wanted to say thanks so much, Chris, for making some of those points. And just to kind of share with the group, really, that for Daniel and I, starting to do weekly webinars using Zoom and doing what we're doing today was an absolute baptism of fire. And I think a few of you have heard me say that before. I was used to public speaking as I worked for a lecturer at a university, as a lecturer for a long time at a university. But like many people, when I first started out, I hated public speaking. And I had done a bit of presentations and things like that at university. And when I started to do more business presentations, and then when I took a role at Kingston and Warwick Business Schools to lecture, just before I would walk out, into a group of 20 or 50 or sometimes 100 students, I would think, why am I doing this to myself? Why am I putting myself through this mill once a week? It's horrendous. And having worked with so many trainers over the last decade and seeing now the need for people to do at least a little bit of their delivery online, I think everything you've said there, Chris, kind of really just not resonates with me personally, but is certainly really good advice for any trainer or coach out there, because nobody knows your script. Nobody knows what you think you're going to say beforehand or what you don't say. I think, just to sort of recap, rehearsing before you deliver is really important, particularly if you're feeling particularly nervous because you've got new content and things like that. And one of the tips I've had, which I personally found quite helpful, was a friend of mine works in television. And I said, okay, well, when you're being interviewed, you know, you can't see yourself, but everybody on the camera can see you, and that can be quite disconcerting. So certainly kind of trial the presentation to family and friends. But the best thing that you can do at the moment is set your camera on your iPhone to video selfie mode, and just deliver looking at the camera on your smartphone. And then after 5 minutes or so, just watch yourself back and just kind of get used to looking at the little dot that's your camera to talk to. So I'm just looking right now at the little white dot on the top of mine, and kind of really understand what you look like and how you're coming across, and whether you're speaking too fast or too slow. And that for me personally has been really helpful. And I think that every trainer and coach we work with, you know, we're seeing quite a lot of unease and lack of confidence at the moment about how we're going to return to being really good trainers in a kind of post-COVID world. But everybody needs to take heart, you know, in that you wouldn't be part of this accredited member community if your training wasn't fantastic and if you haven't met the criteria. So, and just a couple of reflections and tips from me. And I suppose, you know, the other thing to say is nobody's perfect at all. And if anything, we're a lot more forgiving now of what's happening online as we deliver, and personal things maybe going on in the background, than perhaps we were beforehand.
Well, it's like Gina said, in the fact that people relate better to humans rather than robots, and ironically, that is part of my training. Is that, you know, they want to see those imperfections. I mean, you mentioned there, Amanda, about rehearsing. One of the key things I would always say on that is rehearse it from the perspective of making sure that the content's there and flows. Don't over rehearse it in terms of exactly what you're going to say, exactly how you're going to say. I mean, I've heard schools of thoughts that even do the whole practice to make sure you laugh in the right point and do things like, no, goodness me, less script equals more of you. You need to let it flow, but it's about making sure you know what's coming next on the slide. Have I put it in the right order? Have I remembered every bit of content? And by going through it, that's where you're going to see the mistakes. But don't feel that you are scripting it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for me, like Amanda said, it has been quite a steep learning curve. For myself, it's been more of a thing where I'm quite off the cuff anyway, but I do like to have some kind of structure in terms of what I'm going to say. So I would just think about it for a moment before, or for a little while before I go on during the week, and just write a couple of notes. And then I won't look at the notes again, but because I've written them down, they stay in the back of my mind. And then when I'm presenting, it just kind of comes back naturally. Obviously that's for myself, but it seems to work for me. So if you just like write the notes down and don't have them right there, because it does get tempting just to like read them. And then like Chris said, you start coming across a bit cardboardy and not as...
Which is why the notes need to be as little as possible. You know, I'm a big advocate of literally bullet points to go, and I've got to talk about this, I've got to talk about this. You know the subject around this and this and this, so don't suddenly script it all there in the paragraph. Just say, right, I need to talk about this next. And I call it the steak and the sizzle. You note down the steak and you give it the sizzle naturally when you're there talking. Other people have called it other things with me, but I'm not allowed to repeat them at this time of day. But you know, it is about trying to make it as natural as possible. Just the other thing on that front is that, don't you find that now, historically, everyone was like, no, it's got to be face-to-face, whether it's meetings, whether it's presentations, whether it's training, everything has to be. It's not as personal otherwise. Well, suddenly we've been forced into this situation. We've been having, I'm sure all of us are the same, the way you're catching up via video with family and friends, and some very interesting things taking shape with quiz nights and cocktail nights and all sorts of things. And we've suddenly learnt to find this a bit more personal than it historically was. And you see that we can sit here now with relative strangers around here, and yet we're having a nice free-flowing conversation. That probably unheard of for a lot of us if we rewound back 6 months' time or whatever. And I think that there is a lot to sort of acknowledge, going, oh, do you know what? I can do that. I am okay at doing that. I'm comfortable at doing that. Therefore, I can do it for meetings and training and whatever else.
Yeah. Okay, guys, we are going to have to move on now.
Final bit of advice then, Daniel.
Okay,
final bit. With the online bit, never stand up.
Don't stand up.
Because then they'll find out you're in shorts.
Okay, I was just about to do it and show everyone my what colour are they? Red shorts, loungewear. Nice
or your pajamas, whichever it is. You know, that's you go smart from there up, but just don't stand up because you'll forget.
Actually, just to chip in with that tip. Actually, I've spoken to quite a lot of trainers about this, about the fact that some of them, it's starting to rain. Sorry, you know, they just got a smart top on. But some people have said to me, you know, what I do when I'm about to deliver on a session online is I dress and, you know, get myself ready and have the right shoes on and have the exact outfit on that I would have worn if I was standing in front of a group of people. So, you know, they kind of take themselves back to, okay, right, pre-COVID, I was in the front of a room and I was in a suit or, you know, very smart outfit. And a number of people have said to me that, you know, by doing that, they've got themselves into the right headspace in order to deliver properly. And it's kind of pulled their body language together, as Chris, you were saying, you know, make sure you sit with your back straight and things like that. So I think that's something else to keep in mind.
Yeah, definitely.
That, honest, Your Honour.
Yeah, I guess in that sense, if you look good, or if you feel you look good, then yeah, you feel better about yourself. So 100% I agree with that one. I always make sure that my hair's done. You know,
me
and
too.
I've got a nice shave.
Me too.
Barnaby caught me the other day, actually. I was getting ready for Barnaby before we had a chat, and I was there in the camera like that just before we got on. So definitely important. Thank you so much, Chris, for that contribution. And I saw a lot of people taking a lot of notes during that one. So thank you very much. A lot of valuable information there. And thank you for the information added there as well, Amanda, for that one, and Gina. All right, fantastic. Now we're going to move on to the external trust. Just got some advice from Charlotte in the comments. So if you want to go ahead and look at that comment, she's just talking about PowerPoint and how you can kind of record yourself and also have the presentation on screen as well. So if you have a look at that, that's a good tip there from Charlotte. External trust. So for the external trust, we're looking at being seen as trustworthy brand and trusting in your sales process and skills. So we have Barnaby Winter, who's going to be leading on this segment. The first question we have for Barnaby is, how do you build a trustworthy brand that attracts potential delegates?
Daniel, thank you for that. And thank you also, Gina and Chris, for setting this up. Always slightly depressing when in the poll nobody wants to listen to you.
A little bit. I was kind of thinking, should I have done that now?
So now I've decided to take it up as a challenge, so that if the poll was repeated, it would be the other way round. Having said that, the work that Gina and Chris have done have been fantastic in terms of setting up a lot of what I'm going to say, in particular Gina, who has given the right one side of the coin. I'm going to give the other side of the coin. So
before you start though, that the reason people haven't mentioned it is because so many people are frightened of it.
I think you might be right. So I am taking it on as a challenge, and what I want to do is spend the time now, next half an hour or so, just getting you comfortable with why a brand is important for you as trainers and coaches. But before I do that, what I'd love you all to do, actually, and this I'm going to get you to do some work here, is I'd like you to type into the chat box what you think a brand is. What do you think a brand is? So just type it in. Don't give me War and Peace. Just give us an answer. Let's
What's
get
the word count? How many words are we allowed?
You're allowed as many as you can type until I say that's it, no more. And then, so if you haven't appeared, you haven't committed to submit. So what do you think a brand is, everybody? Come on. Jessica, Mikhail, Katie, Wendy, Shirley, Charlotte, all have a go. So what do we got here? Yeah. Stand for, no. Okay, unique identifier, personal product, ethos of an organization, what people say about you when you're in the room. Yeah. That's what Mr. Bezos says, is it? Oh, okay. It's not what he says, but it's been going around a long time, but he does use it. Identity and reputation, product service, defines you as a company, personality. Because you're all a smart bunch, aren't you? Goodness. My brand is what my organization, the office makes us stand out. The brand is what we are, what we believe in. Right, fantastic. So listen, guys, the great thing about asking this question is you'll see from the answers that nobody has the same answer. They're all slightly different, a slight angle. So it's all very well saying, how do you build a trustworthy brand, when we don't even actually know what one is collectively. And I've found that throughout my 35 years of helping create 570 brands and broadcasting them worldwide, including trainers and coaches, is that often we as business owners, as leaders, don't even know what we're asking for. And that has allowed my industry to mislead you, I think, the marketing industry, the brand development industry, because what we do is we walk in and say, what would you like? I say, I'd like a new brand. And you say, well, what do you think a brand is? And you say, Claire Murray would say, it's the ethos. I want to present the ethos of my business. I go, oh, well, what's your budget? You say, well, I've got £10,000. I say, right, well, I will use your £10,000 to present your ethos. Meanwhile, I go to Chris and I say, well, you've called me because you want a new brand. He said, yes, I do. What would you like? He said, I'd like new identity and a reputation. I said, how much is your budget? He says, it's £10,000. I say, I will spend your £10,000 on creating you a new identity. Meanwhile, Mikhail is saying, I just want to portray my personality. I see your personality, of course. What is your budget? You say it's £10,000. I say, I will help you convey your personality. We have a problem here, everyone, that we don't really know what bless you, Isar. So, it's all right. It's a great thing about video. You got to watch everything, you see. That's why you should all be on and not be behind black screens. So what I want to do is, in 1999, I became the youngest managing director of a top 200 advertising agency. And in my first board meeting, I talked about why I joined the company. And why I joined the company was because of this. And it's why I'm now called the Brand Bucket Company. A little bucket. Can you see that? You see that? And I stood in the first board meeting. And I said, listen, guys, I know what a bucket is. What's a brand? And we that day had 148 person years experience of creating a brand. And we filled up 6 sheets of A1 flip chart paper with over 70 different answers of what brand was. And I said, okay, we have a problem here. You can't send me out at the age of 36 into the great unwashed and expect me to do that. So we came up with a definition of brand, and it's really important that you get this. So our definition of brand, we created it in 1999, took 3.5 months, I've been using it ever since, is as follows. A brand is every experience that affects the relationship between a product or service and its buyer. So a brand is every experience that affects, with an A, the relationship between a product or service and its buyer. Now, if you're going to build a brand, the only reason really to do it is to help your business get the brand to do the heavy lifting. Because what happens, and if you listen to Gina, if you listen to Chris, what we've been talking about is an internal thing, your own personal energy that goes into your business. But what tends to happen with trainers and coaches and professional speakers such as myself and things like that is we end up spending so much time working on ourselves, we end up doing our own heavy lifting. We have to kind of keep broadcasting ourselves out as personalities, as people, as energy. And the advantage of having a brand is it can do all that work without you in the room. And it's really important that if you want to build a fantastic lifestyle that includes work you love doing, training, coaching, helping people make a difference. But at the same time, you want to be part of a family or go on holiday or literally take time away from having to work. You need a brand to help you do that. You need a something, an asset of your way of working that allows you and your values to communicate with the outside world. And actually, it's a key component as well of generating trust in your competency, in your ability to do that. Because what a brand will do for you is it will help you meet and manage expectation. Rather than you always having to do it yourself from scratch, what you actually can do is get the brand to help you meet or manage your expectation. It also allows you to create a framework around yourself, a set of clothes, however you want to describe it, that actually is consistent all of the time. So it takes the pressure off you being in a good mood. Yeah. Actually, you can be a bit down that day, but your brand will always present your value set consistently all the time. And the other thing a brand will really do that really builds trust is it will always feel familiar every time I interact with you as a trainer or a coach. That actually is consistently telling me the same promise, the same thing. And that's really critical if you really want to run a great life where your business, your brand is just holding everything together. And that's why we rely on them so much. So actually, the way you build this brand, the way you attract people to it, you've really got to follow 4 key steps. And the first step is that actually people have kind of got to become familiar with you. You've got to create something that every time I am touching your business, I become familiar. And there are a number of ways of doing that, really 3 ways of doing that. But the first thing you want to do is you could use your name. The trouble is we all have names. So the difficulty with that is you're going to have to work really hard to get your name to be different to everybody else's names, which are arguably different. But if you look at the marketplace, if you look at the Sainsbury's, the Chanel's, the Gucci's, all of these people are using their names. Cadbury's, they're all names, but they've been around for hundreds of years. We probably don't have time or money to do that. The other thing you can do is you can come up with a natty line, a memorable line. If I say to you how to win friends and influence people as a line, you'll hopefully all be drawn to one of the most famous trainers of all time, Dale Carnegie, right? He became famous for that. You can be, you never get fired for hiring IBM, right? Because that's one of their lines. You can have Just Do It. You can have Coke Is It. It doesn't matter. They're all lines. You can do that. You can create your own line. But actually, the most powerful way of creating familiarity for you as a person is to create a brand property. And now, I really thank Gina for this because she talked about this in her talk. But if I show you this, does that mean anything to anybody? Right? Heinz, correct, absolutely. So those of you that know, that's Heinz. But what does the 57 stand for? What does it stand for? What's it mean? Sorry, Judy, switch up. 57 varieties. Varieties, yes, I'm lip reading, you see, because it's varieties. Thank you, Judy. Yeah, varieties. Varieties of what, though, Judy?
Varieties of product.
Okay, you sure?
Age thing. They don't use it now, do they? I'm probably much older than most people here. I remember the adverts.
Yeah, okay. And actually, if you look at the glass in your ketchup, you'll see that it has 57 embossed into it. It's still using it all of the time. Okay, the thing about this is it's entirely made up. It has no reality at all. It's got nothing to do with varieties or number of beans or number of products or anything. It's completely made up. H.J. Heinz chose 57 and decided to make it famous. And he did that by changing his telephone number to 57, 57, 57 to move to a place in Pittsburgh that had 57 in the address. Up to 1969, if you wrote to Heinz on approaching your 57th birthday, they sent you a box of 57 products free as a birthday present. And in the 90s, they paid $57 million for the Pittsburgh Steelers Stadium to call it the Heinz Stadium. Now, what he did is he found a property, something that he really cared about. And then he made it famous. Now, we can all do that. We can all find something. Now, you might argue, and I hope, ladies, you know what this is. Does everybody know what that is?
Can't see.
That is, all it is.
Post-it notes.
Huh?
Post-it notes.
No, no, no. It's actually a little box.
Oh.
What is that?
Tiffany.
Tiffany, thank you very much. Daniel knows how
It
to.
wasn't me. It's Jessica and it's that.
Oh, okay. Well, oh yeah. Okay, Jessica, well done. These are quality people who know their Tiffany box. This color is patented. Only Tiffany can use this color. Yeah, only Tiffany can use this color. Right. And that's a brand property. So you can use a color. You can do whatever you like. One of my most famous ones is this one. It's getting a bit tatty now. I must get a new one. Does anybody know what that is?
Macmillan daffodil, isn't it?
It's a Marie Curie daffodil. So that's one of my most famous ones. You can have one of these. You can have one of these. I don't know if you know, you may beginning to work out what mine is, but you have to understand that I have a brand property as well. So you can create one of those. That's the first thing you do. Now it can be a look and feel, it can be a tone of voice. I think Chris mentioned tone of voice. So it could be any of those sorts of things. But you can build that around your thing. The second thing you need to do of the 4 steps is you need to get people to like you. You see, we buy from people we like. But what's most important now, and we did some research in the mid-2000s, is not because of the knowledge economy and the digital economy, people not only buy from people they like, they buy from people who are like them. So what you've got to do is you've got to portray yourself. Now, what you need to do as trainers and coaches is demonstrate something really important, and that is that you make sense of a very complicated world. So the way to portray your brand is to demonstrate to the outside world through the digital economy how clever you are, what you know, how you understand things. And you can do that through blogs, you can do that through tweets, you can do that on your website, you can do all that sort of thing. But actually what people are doing is looking for you, and when they find you, they find that you're smart about your subject matter. And the great thing about everybody on this session is we're all CPD accredited, which means we've demonstrated and proven it that we are smart. So actually you can say, here is something that I think, and I'm a CPD accredited. So actually it comes with a kudos, really important. The third thing you then need to do is demonstrate your value. You must demonstrate your value. And the way to do that is to communicate your benefits, what it is you do for your audiences. And the way you do that is you've got to take, and actually where I slightly disagree with Gina, it's not about your why, it's about how you improve the lives of the people in your audience. And that's what you should be communicating absolutely everywhere. It's all about the audience. It's all about the recipients of your wisdom, your knowledge. And you demonstrate that through communicating benefits. And then the 4th step is you need to prove that you do know what you know. And the way to do that is to do a very simple thing, which is to offer a test drive. Is to let people have a little taster of what you can do for them. Pick one thing in your training that you just know every time you do it has a profound effect on your audience, and give it away and let people have a go. Because then they go, that's interesting. I've come to this person. I like them because they like me. I'm familiar with their little funny little icon thing. And they've let me have a go of something I thought was important, and it's worked. If you do that, you will be attracting everybody to you. So people will find you, they will find that you're making sense of the marketplace, you're making sense of an issue, you're making sense of a problem that they might have, and they will then be attracted to you. So that's how you build a trustworthy brand that attracts potential delegates.
Fantastic. Brilliant answer to question number 1. All right, guys, we did overrun because I kind of put more focus on the first 2.
I know you did.
I did. I know you was conscious of that, Barnaby.
That's right. I'll go small.
We are going to probably extend it a little bit. This will go out to you guys in the recording anyway. So if you do need to rush off, just say in the chat, and then you can shoot off. So we will be continuing with the next question now. So in a rebrand, what are the first 3 things to consider?
Okay, so if you are going to build your brand, whether it's a rebrand or build your brand, what you have to do is you have to build the foundation stones of what constitutes a relationship. And actually, business, all of us are in the business of commercializing relationships. So what we're trying to do, whether we sell them for one thing or another, and to do that, you need to create the 2 key components of a relationship. The first thing you need to do, of 3 things, is you must create a value proposition. It's a story that when you tell it to people, makes people say, oh, I see why you're worth more than the money in my pocket. If you cannot say that, if you can't come up with a story that makes people say, I see why you're worth more than the money in my pocket, you are not going to be able to sell the expertise that you have. It's just going to be really, really challenging. Now, it's interesting enough, again, a lot of what Gina said is really the foundation stone for your value proposition, because there are 4 key value sets that you need to communicate. First of all, your behavioral style. So what is your style of doing your training? Because invariably, you're not the only person that trains in your space, but what you are is the only person with your style that trains in that particular way. And so therefore, you've got to make sure your brand carries your style out into the market without you being there. So you need to define that. You need to commit. The second set of benefits are, second set of values are your benefits. So how do you benefit people? The third set then, and again, it's something that Gina said, it's again inspired by Stephen R. Covey's second rule of 7 habits of highly effective trainers. He never wrote that book. It's of how it affects people. Is begin with the end in mind. And when you are creating a thing, you've got to define what you want your audience to believe about your competency, about what they're going to learn, about how you're going to make a difference. You need to define that up front, because then when you're creating your brand, you can make everything work that way. And then one thing that you want to be famous for. And strange enough, you want to be famous for one thing, just one thing. Oddly enough, your brand property can come from that thing. Yeah. So if you want to be a rock, then perhaps your brand property can be a rock. If you want to be, you know, a key to a bright future, you might be a torch shaped like a key. You know, I'm making this up on the hoof. I'm not creative. That's the one thing I'm not. So the second thing you need to do, having got your value proposition right, and that's your side of the relationship, is define the other side of the relationship. And that is your perfect prospect. You must define your perfect prospect, because you only really want to attract people to you who are people who you'd love to work with. Not every Tom, Dick and Harry. That would be a mistake. And that's where my marketing industry fails people. They talk about broadcast, all that sort of thing. So you need to attract people who love working with you. And to do that, you need to create a perfect prospect. And you do this psychographically. You write a profile of what do your audience, what do they think, what do they feel, what's the experience they have, what are they looking for, what are the challenges they're facing, and you only design your brand experience for those kinds of people, not everybody. My mum does not need to know how good you are as a trainer, I can assure you. She's 83, yeah? She's kind of given up on it, right? So you don't need to talk to her. So you've got your value proposition, and then you've got your perfect prospect. You need that to build relationships. And then the third thing you need to do is design your product or service and lock it into your business plan. Because if you're selling a seat in one of your programs for £97 and you want to make £97,000, you've got to sell 1,000 seats. In which case you've got to create marketing that generates 1,000 seats. If, however, you're selling a program that costs £50,000 to a corporation and it lasts 6 weeks and you're going to sell 4 of those in a year, the way you're going to present that is entirely different. You're going to look quite different. So you need to be clear about what you're selling and providing the absolute context for the decision makers to make the right decision whilst they are building a relationship with you. And that's the 3 things: value proposition, perfect prospect, and then design your product or service and sit it in a business plan.
That is food for thought. I saw a lot of notes been taken. Definitely food for thought with that one. That could take up a week strong of your time. So the video will be going out, like I said, So you will be able to watch that over and really soak up all of that information there from Barnaby. We are going to move on to the last section just now. Oh, that was it, sorry. I said the last section. No, that wasn't it. Sorry, there is a last section. Excuse me. So building trust in buyers. So how important are delegate reviews?
Okay, so I'll do a quick answer. I'll quick on this because I know time is tight. There's only one thing that in a buyer's mind, and one thing only, and that's themselves. And so you really got to demonstrate that you are listening to them, what they are looking for, what they're looking to achieve. So as trainers and coaches, we have to listen to what the audience are really looking for. And there's lots of ways of doing that. And you have to demonstrate that you have empathy with their choice of a solution. They come to you as a choice of solution. You need to demonstrate you have the value you can show by everything you can do is make a better them. If you don't do this first, they won't buy from you. But actually, if you've done all that, what they then are looking for is the proof that you've been able to do that for other people. And that's where delegate reviews are really important. They are, in fact, your case studies, your proof. In the same way as they work alongside a CPD accredited mark, you've also got real people who said, I went on this program, I went on this course, I went on this training program, and actually it made a difference. But the trick with delegate reviews is to get them to tell the story of your value proposition, to bring to life the things you promise people, rather than say, oh, it was really good on stage, Chris was really animated, he was great, he was fantastic, he was exciting. People aren't interested in that. What they want to know is actually I went in and I found it really easy to learn from Chris, and I felt like a better presenter when I came away from his course, from his training. They're the things that people really go, that's proof. Because then, now the best way of doing that is on video, of course, because the written word can be manipulated. So if you're at the end of your program, just ask people in the corridor to just do a quick 10 seconds on a video on your iPhone, but ask them the question. Ask them the question, how did it make a difference? What did you learn? What was the key thing you're going to take away? Those are the things you should be asking. Whether you've been great, smiley, happy, whatever, been a great presenter, it's not really relevant. What people are buying is for themselves, they're buying solutions. So how important are they? They're really important, but they come much later on than a lot of people use them. That's it, Daniel. I'm not going to say any more.
Okay, fantastic. that was a good one. But yeah, no, very vital that we make the most of the reviews that we are getting. So yeah, making sure you're answering those questions right and capturing them through the right medium. I think video speaks for itself. It really is engaging. So what actions are needed to convert or retarget customers that trust me enough?
Okay, so the really cool thing is if you're giving people a test drive, they say, oh, this really worked for me, that's fantastic, and you say, great, and they say, well, I'd love more of this, and you say, well, I can't keep providing you these test drives, it costs me a fortune, you know, you're not even paying for them, for goodness sake, I'm going to walk away. And they say, no, you can't walk away. And they go, okay, how do I get you to stay? I said, well, I don't really know, I can't keep providing all these free test drives, all these free guides and everything, I really don't know. Oh, I do have one idea. What's that then, they say? They say, well, if you give me money, what will happen is I will stay in the relationship. And they go, yes, that's a great idea. Here, how much? And so what they do is they give you the money. That's how you convert people, is you remove the test drive. But at that point, they have now given you the most valuable thing they have, their life. It's come in the form of money, but we have to use time to earn money, and the money then we spend with other people, etc. So what you've got to do is you've got to make the person that's paying you now feel amazing. And you've got to look amazing, and you've got to be amazing. At this point, you've really got to exceed expectations. Over service people, give them lots of tips, help them through it, guide them, make it easy, make parking easy, make getting to your event easy, making signing up easy, making meeting other people amazing, making pouring coffee and getting cakes easy, making how to get to lunch amazing. All of that stuff, because that's the thing that glues them all together. And then the final thing that you need to is you really need to maintain the loyalty. And the way you do that is all the insights and all the clever stuff that you've been giving all your prospects, you give to the people who give you money too. Don't ignore them. Just say, and by the way, we've just issued this guide on X, and therefore I'm giving it to you because we thought it would help. So they get more from your training. You keep following it up. You give them resource centers. You give them access to the videos. They can email you at any time. People don't. You can give them your private telephone number. They won't ring you. They won't ring you, but they will feel like they do. Yeah. All right. Give them your business number then, Claire. So, but actually, research shows that people are embarrassed to ring up. And the other thing you need to do is say thank you to people all of the time. And if you keep saying thank you to people, thank you for coming on the program, thank you for being an expert. What they do is they become an advocate of what you're about, and they also buy more stuff from you because they just love the experience. Because what you've done is created an experience that affects the relationship between your offer, your training, your coaching, and them as a buyer.
Fantastic. Well, thank you all for being CPDSO members. And thank you to the panel, Barnaby, Chris, and Gina. And thank you for staying with us throughout. This was the first time we've run this type of session. It's something that we're going to be looking to do more of moving forward. And so it was kind of a trial run. We will be modifying things slightly. So today, obviously, the format kind of overrun, so might have less speakers or more time. But we are looking to get feedback from you all on that. Lastly, I just want to say the slides and everything will be going out next week, early next week to everyone. And there was one last poll that I wanted to run because we do want to create more and more value for our members. So another thing that we are looking to do is actually get together some networking sessions. I know you guys wasn't really in a talkative mood today, but we are thinking about some networking sessions. So I'm just going to run a poll to see if that's interesting for you guys. How likely would you be to attend a regular CPDSO networking session? And a session where you can promote yourselves to other members. So it's not just about sharing, but there might be opportunity to promote as well. And there will be topical. So there'll be a topic around it, and then you'll have a chance to talk to people, go into breakout rooms, so forth, so forth. If that sounds interesting, just engage with that one.
Just while you're answering those questions, what we're trying to create here and what Daniel is describing, as many of you who perhaps have been members now for a year or two, you will have attended our face-to-face events pre-COVID, and they were always held at the Institute of Civil Engineers just off Parliament Square, and they always provided a really rich networking, stimulating debate for our membership. And we would theme different events around different topics. Obviously, in the light of COVID, all of those are cancelled, and they are cancelled for the foreseeable future, because although we can hold an event again, we can't get as many of you in the room. And we know that for many of you that attended, it was the networking bit that you really, really found interesting. The ability to share your services and promote them to a greater network, the ability to form sisterships or strategic partnerships so you could take on larger contracts. And so what we're trying to do now is forge a way ahead with the membership for you, our global community, that you can have a slightly more enriched online experience, as well as the weekly webinars, which we'll continue to run, but will actually create the opportunity for you to have conversations within yourselves. And we're looking at various kind of technological event solutions that we can deliver online with that. So that's what we're basically looking to do, particularly as autumn comes and winter comes and we try and step back into a form of face-to-face training. But of course, everybody is going to remain online for the time being. And so we would welcome your feedback, any thoughts and comments. Do drop Daniel and I a line directly on our email addresses, which we'll shortly put into the chat, because that's what we want to do. That's what we want to resume. The ability for you all to discuss, network, collaborate and feedback on each of your individual strengths and training portfolios.
Brilliant. Thank you guys for participating in that one. And just lastly, is there any questions that anyone had? My email is going into the chat now. If there's any questions, please do just put that into the chat. If there's not, please panel, go ahead, say some final remarks. Start with Gina.
I'd say to everyone, the thinking that's got us to this place is not going to be the quality of thinking that actually takes us forward. So it's time to review, look at yourself, look at your beliefs, those that are empowering you, keep them, those that aren't, let them go. And it's time to think creatively as we move forward. And good luck, and it's been great to be with you today. Thank you.
Fantastic. Chris?
Not much more to add, really, compared to what you'll be pleased to know, but do unlock yourself, do have the confidence to express your knowledge, your opinions, your passion for what you know, and take great pride in all the people that you're able to assist out there, whether that's face-to-face or remotely. It still, as I've been experiencing, is able to help a lot of people.
Barnaby?
My overall comment is the waters are about to become very muddy. We are going to get a lot of unemployed people who are all going to claim to be experts in fields. We are privileged to be accredited by CPD, and that makes us an army of people that have proven to a standard that we are in a much better place to educate, train, help people make a difference. I think the more we club together and the more we work together, the more we celebrate our expertise using loads of devices that you've had today, the better chance we have of making a real difference to UK PLC at a time when there's going to be lots of so-called experts appearing.
Okay, fantastic. Well, I just want to extend a big thank you to the panel. An abundance of information was given today, and like I said, the video is going to be available next week along with the slides with the questions on it, just for your reference. And yeah, so look out for the next event from CPDSO. Like I said, we are looking to branch out and do different formats of events. So if you do have any ideas, my email is in the chat box, and so is Amanda's. Feel free to email us. And for now, have a great afternoon, and I will speak with you all in due course. Thank you for joining us today.
Bye-bye. Bye, everyone.
Thanks all.
Bye-bye.
Stay safe.